moving the box and lowering out the side so that you can now see beyond the edge.
The brain does not do the difference between the real and the imaginary. Yeah, you are absolutely right.
We're in the language of film at the moment. You're in the language of possibly change management and transformation. So when you think you're saying one thing, we're picking up something else. In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
Garvin actually said to me, George, don't let us have a preamble going on because basically we'll have all the juicy bits all done and dusted and they won't started recording.
No, actually, the gas thing is you think...
We've got to have an introduction. We need to have an introduction.
It's already happening. The gas thing is we don't know you, you don't know us. We're already 5 minutes into a conversation about, it doesn't matter, about nothing at the moment other than humanity. And saying hello.
Hi, I'm George. This is Frederica. This is Garvin. And somewhere along the line, we have a show going on.
Hi!
The show
is a matrix.
Actually, I think in our last one, we were saying the show must go on.
I just got the song in full blast in my head now.
Now, normally that happens to me. The sun comes around here, spots me here. George then reminds me that I'm winking at him, and I've one eye because the sun is on my bald head, nuking me. But no, I says what we will do is no, it's not what we will do. I'm trying to be the showman. George has to calm me down, rein me back in, and go. There's a structure. There's a form.
It's a hard job.
It's a very hard job. Now that you have you there. He has some hope.
Yeah, Bob Hope, probably.
Yeah,
There's
no hope.
No other hope there. So, no, we'll use some of this. These could be the outtakes. We'll get something going on in there. So, okay, folks. Well, look, we are reaching our episode 70, I think it is, in this game at the moment. And for the very first time, we have a guest on our show. It's Frederique Murphy, who's releasing a book at the end of the month, which we probably won't talk that much about. You probably will somewhere along the line, called Lead Beyond the Edge, which is an exciting sounding book because we definitely are leading beyond the edge in what we're doing. We're going beyond our comfort zones and the likes of. And at this particular point, I'm really pleased because Garvin's given me a chance to start talking. But I'm going to hand over to Garvin for a few moments so he can actually talk to Frederica.
Look at that. He said he wants some airtime. We're not 3 seconds in, and I was going to take a break, do a bit of mindfulness, and he's chucked it straight back to me already. So he's saying, actually, I think what's happening here is he's going, wear him out a little bit, and then he can have a good conversation with Frederica about the real things. Because he's a lecturer, he's an educationalist, he's a practitioner, he knows coaching, he knows mentoring, he knows all the language, he studied the science. I am a bullshit artist. So I'm going to run out quite quick. He's going to be able to talk to technobabble. So Frederica, you can actually talk very educated with him. With me, you don't know what you're going to get. But actually, one thing you're going to really, really like before we start is I force-fed myself last night half your book. I actually sat down in front of Netflix, but then I tuned out of Netflix and I tuned in to Leading Beyond the Edge. And I didn't read a whole book. I got to a page 118. So anything beyond that, I'm guessing. So up to there, I could actually relate to every other than your particular science, which is it seems like you've developed your own framework and wiring technology to incorporate your language around a bunch of sciences in the background based on your personal experiences that makes it yours, that makes it personal to you, that makes it unique, that it's now your language, your book, your framework, and it's something, but you've adapted the art, the science, the personality, so you can make it entertaining and consumable to me. You did that. You achieved that. Yay. I'm halfway in. Can't wait to finish the next bit. But the first bit, it was immediately resonating was, you're on a journey. It's the edge, leading beyond the edge. We immediately understood it to be, before you had even said it, is the edge of your comfort zone. Let's break through the comfort zone. Let's go on a journey to the other side. We're on that journey. We're on that journey. You're on that journey. All your future customers and readers, you're hoping go on similar journeys. Tell us about the edge of madness.
Well, thank you. Or the edge of glory.
Oh, that's it.
Well, no.
We're going out the edge of glory as we're going to war. There's glory at the other side.
Yes.
You know, it means a lot. And thank you so much to both of you for having me on your show. I cannot believe I am your first official joker. And I take it very seriously. And I'm just already, I haven't laughed that much in any of the book tour interviews. So it's really, really exciting.
You're
so
laughing
thank you
at
for
us. You're
having
laughing
me.
at us.
And whoa, 118 means that you actually went through over half already, which is really exciting. And you're right, it is an exciting time. And I'm really appreciating how you've picked up on the fact that it is a journey, but it is not just me on this journey. There is something really, really important to me for the book, because this is who I am. This is who I am on stage. So via the book, I just wanted it to be the same. We are all in this together. And I think like the two of you who have had this amazing launch of the podcast, created this in this pandemic where, we are experiencing something that we've never experienced before, and we are all in this together. And the edge, like you said, why leading beyond the edge, and what is the edge? And the edge is, like you said, the box. And I know, some school of thoughts, they tell you, well, forget about the box. But actually, this is not how our brain works. We work better when we are fully conscious of what it is that we then can tackle, because you can only tackle something that you can see and you can feel and you can experience. So we have a comfort zone. So Garvin, you have a comfort zone. George, you have a comfort zone. Me, I have a comfort zone. All of you listeners and viewers, you all have a comfort zone. And then what happens is just like to, imagine exactly what happens, because this is what the book is underpinned by. What happens is, as the name says, it's very comfortable inside. We are inside, 4 walls around us. What's inside with us is everything that we've already achieved. So, all of the goals you've already gone for, all of the dreams you had and you've achieved, they are all around you. So like if you were picturing yourself in a kind of square box and you put yourself smiley, Joker hat on, all of the little dots around you are the one things that you've done. Now think of all of the things that you want to do. When I talk about extraordinary results, what is your extraordinary? The things that you are not done yet, you haven't done yet, you haven't experienced yet. All of those things, they are all of the dots outside of the edge. So then what happens is we start walking towards the edge. And when we reach the edge, this entire panic floods our brain, hence why we do not want to get out and we stay inside our comfort zone. And the whole book has been put together so that I give you every single step so that you understand how your brain works, so that your brain hopes on you on the journey and then teaches you how to lead beyond that wall, that edge, so that then you access your extraordinary. This is the edge.
Actually, I'm going to jump in 1 second there, George. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
You can cut me out later. But
okay.
Lead. I like the word lead, because at the moment you're leading yourself. You're the leader, but you're leading yourself. You may not have a team. You could have a team as well, but you have to lead. You have to go first. Now, I also like the edge. You perceive a cliff initially, excuse me, because what you're doing is that's the comfort. And actually, we want to become I want to become very uncomfortable. Because you're in your comfort zone. If you stay comfortable, you're fine. You're grand where you are. But it's only when you get uncomfortable, it's time to move. It's to go now, make the box bigger and get comfortable again. And therefore, now you have a bigger box and there's more ties.
Correct. It just grows with you. And it's a never going. So when it grows, then you have to do it again and then again and again and again.
Very interesting concept, because one of the things that I started to think about, you've got your box. Okay. One of the things that and what's interesting about your diagram, which is the 3-sided pyramid, you've got a 3-sided pyramid box, which I think is really quite nice. Now, one of the things that Garvin and I have had to get used to with these shows is that we're having to reveal a side of ourselves that we don't normally reveal to an audience. So if you take the box, I'm going to sort of 3-sided pyramid type thing, and move one of the sides down, you're then revealing your inner self to the outside world. Now, inside the box, you're just thinking about your own individualistic way of thinking. Once that side goes down and the world can look in, you then have to adapt to the fact that you've now got an audience, and you're trying to either, it depends if you're selfish, you're trying to pull that back up, or you start to then perform for what your audience needs. And I had an interesting experience last night because I'm on a counselling course. I felt too tired to actually be the counsellor, so I decided to play act a character, and this time around I played an old man who was 82 living at home, and I went through, and I honestly went, wow, this is really interesting, because I now feel comfortable and confident enough now to act out another person, another character, another position, and which I think in life we find we are taking on roles. Garvin and I are talking about roles within our academy, and what we're starting to realize is that we have to work out, what is that role? Do we script that role? Which I think also comes back to your framework. We like frameworks. We're very much into frameworks. And those things become very important, because I have a sister that's an artist, and so does Garvin. Both of us have artists in our family. Each of them uses a canvas, which is normally square, very blocky. But how they imagine that world within it and add depth to what is effectively a 2D plane is they're actually pushing their box backwards into a 3D environment. So it's fascinating just to see how all these different people connect things, and what you're doing in how you're connecting to that same kind of idea of the box, moving the box and lowering out the side so that you can now see beyond the edge. It's not just about being on the edge, it's actually seeing and perceiving where that edge actually is. Is that about right?
Yeah, no, it is. No. No, it is, isn't it? It's like I wanted. You actually used. Garvin had slightly introduced it as part of, that there is a framework, and George, you mentioned it, and I wanted to be, well, different. Like Garvin said, you're very unique to me, but. People say, do you know that diagram that it's usually it's a two-part one? At the top it says what you think success is, and then there's a white line, and then at the bottom it says what success actually is, and then someone goes like this. Do you know that one? And I want to actually say, which I do say in the intro of the book, I want to suggest a third way. Because it does not have to be that mess, which actually is really scary. When you look at that, you're like, not sure I'm going to go there, right? So you're kind of retreating into your box. And this is where my third way is that instead of being like this, it's this multi-dimensional three sides. So it's a triangle framework. And inside, it's the three different circuits. And then inside the three, then each three divided. So all in all, you have actually 12 parts. And I think it becomes much more focused and structured, and really helps and takes you away from, it does not have to be messy. It can be a structured path, which
I'm going to jump in because you're chucking an awful lot of images into my mind. Now, our minds are warped minds. So when you're talking in your language, I don't know if you've ever read Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and there's a little fish in there called the Babel fish, and it translates into every language. So we're in the language of film at the moment. You're in the language of possibly change management and transformation. So when you think you're saying one thing, we're picking up something else. You mentioned framework, and we're thinking the Matrix. You mentioned visualize. Actually, I know in the book it mentions visualization. We had a show a couple of weeks ago, and we said, if you can believe, you mentioned it in your book as well, believe it first, then go do it, then make it real, materialize it, manifest it. But your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and the dream world. Therefore, we can actually have already lived the future in the present. We've got past memories of the future by going on the journey of those goals and plans and dreams that you're talking about, and believing. We have to believe them first. We're the first believer. If we can believe it, we can convince others. And if we can see it and visualize it in our own mindset, it's already there. It already exists in a different time frame. We just have to take those steps to it. And what I liked about your book all the way up to the halfway point was I start to see this language job. The act and do it. Believe it and see it. Visualize it. And your brain doesn't know. Just step into it. Step into that journey. And now we're in the matrix. We're taking control of the framework, and our mind doesn't know the difference between reality and dream world. And it's all the same. We can live it, we can dream it, we can enjoy every moment. It doesn't even have to exist.
No, this is actually not my favorite, because actually in the book, what you see is what you get with me. I obviously genuinely love what I do. There is this moment, I live for that moment when I'm on stage, and even now virtually we can all, it's been happening also. But there is this moment when suddenly your audience starts believing, and there's like this shift, and the eyes are starting to, they are like sparkling that little bit more. There's a blush of rosy cheeks that's happening because of an influx of blood. There is this like shift into a posture. And that moment, I live for it. And the book for me is a way to reach so many people so that they access this moment, because from that moment on they can go. And like you said, one of the main thing is that our brain does not know the difference. Okay, so some of you may be like, am I hearing, Garvin right? Did he say the brain does not do the difference between the real and the imaginary? Yeah, you are absolutely right. It's actually true. It sounds unreal. Sometimes you have to listen to it several times when you first hear it. This was discovered in 1960 by Maxwell Maltz. And he wrote about it in a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which actually many people would not have heard of, except that all of his teachings are used by all of the personal development gurus these days, and they kind of forget to mention his name. And we have learned so much from him. And when we discovered that from the brain, like Garvin said, you can actually create your déjà vu. You can see it in your mind, and then next thing you know, when it's happening, you feel like a déjà vu, but it's because you had experienced it before.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm sort of sitting there kind of going, I'm as a lecturer, usually with a smaller group of people, about 15 to 20 people. One of the things that you discover as an educationist is that cognitive process. It's when they've recognized something, and it's like the light bulb goes on. So that idea of the light bulb going on, you kind of go, oh, now you kind of go, right, now I know that you fully understand and comprehend what I'm actually trying to say to you. And they can own that. They now suddenly can own it. It becomes their real thing. But what we were talking about there, we kind of like that idea, because we're looking at parallel universes and all kinds of crazy things at the moment, and Schrödinger's cat and all that kind of stuff. Is it dead or is it alive? And has Schrödinger's cat.
Is it in the box? Is it out of the box? Is it in the silo? Is it going on the journey?
And again, isn't that interesting? That it's actually the box again. It's the box. It's only when we look inside the box do we know whether or not it's one or the other. And until we have that anticipation, or until we actually open it up and realize what's going on, then that's the scary bit. And normally what happens with most people is their fear prevents them from opening the box, because their imagination can create all kinds of horrors and fears about opening that box. It's like the Jack-in-the-Box. Sometimes when the box is opened up, the thing that springs up at you is the nightmare. I have a 2-year-old grandson. He's 2 years old today. And we sent him a little Jack-in-the-Box. And what was interesting was he wound it up and he could hear the tunes going. And then he went, because the thing was going to jump out. He knew when it was going to happen. He anticipated it, and you could see it within his. But again, these are the stories in the boxes, and what's real and what's not real becomes a very important thing. And I think, although you're saying that it's only discovered in the 1960s, I think a lot of religions will actually show that we've known this throughout the whole concept of mankind. And there comes a point where I think science is now reaching that point where it's kind of going back to the idea there's something out there that we didn't realize, and we need to explore that from a scientific perspective, I think, which is quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea of is this reality, or is this a hologram? Is this an illusion? Are we in a matrix of some nature? Those ideas are becoming stronger and stronger.
I'm going to jump in for a second, because I'm going to bring it back to the real world. I loved your little story because you actually reiterated it there about when you go up on stage. And before you go on stage, you might have a bit of, it's like, actually, the great thing here is we're talking about the stage of life as well. And one of our shows was about getting out of the shadows and into the light. And the light in question was stepping onto the stage. We have another show called The Story of You. This is about, everybody, the whole journey of your life is actually your journey. If you're not there, it doesn't matter. If you are there, it's who you interact with. It's the journey you go on and how exciting that story will be. If you stay in a room in a box and don't go outside, your imagination might be great and strong. It can create certain worlds and visions, but none of it is actually real. You can manifest a lot, but until you step out and actually meet other people, it's not just your audience, it's your suppliers, your customer, your audience, your friends, your relationships. That's what enriches our lives and makes the story of you an interesting one to read. Now, reading your story, or which you've mapped your journey of job and career over life and manifestation of book through the pandemic, you're making an awful lot of your dreams more real, so other people understand it, that they can then associate with it and go, I have a story in me. Frederique has done it. She's given us a pathway. We can go on a similar journey. It doesn't need to go the same depth or width or our successes. Now, one thing I'm getting to it now, you were talking about the framework to get you to your goals, and you can then get to your new level of comfort, and then when you get uncomfortable again, you can go on a new journey and again reapply the framework. We are using the language of mountains and molehills. What we have in front of us is Mount Everest, but we know it's actually just a couple of thousand molehills put together in a pile, and they're all bite-sized chunks of micro successes that if we do one at a time, we'll find ourselves on the top of Mount Everest before we know it. But if we look up, we'll never start. So it's as you said, lead beyond the edge. Step out of your comfort zone, go on a journey of baby successes, and before you know it, you're already doing it, you're already living it. And so we love the language. It's your language. Other people have their own names for it, but it's a great thing to say is you're showing the way. You're leading from the edge. You're saying you're doing it for yourself. Follow me, do what you want to do for yourselves. It can be big, it can be small. It can just be going to the shops and back during a pandemic.
So one of the things I thought was quite interesting was the acceptance stage that you were talking about, where you were talking about stop, sleep, and scribe. And Garvin was saying earlier on, that's me, because I've been writing all the way through the pandemic, just keeping a journal, because we've been doing the Julian Cameron, The Artist's Way. But I do think that the accept, and that's the idea of stopping and slowing things down, to give yourself time to go through a process where you're making sense of what's actually going on is very important. Do you want to explain your concepts of those?
Yeah, but actually, in the book, I share the analogy of, and I know this is something that, we haven't been able to do in a while, but I know that most people will be able to relate. When we are in the plane, and when the plane goes up, and we start, when we start feeling our ears, and this is exactly what I mean. This is when, you're not panicking about it. You just know, I'm just reaching a new level of altitude. And you know that, and you accept that. And then next thing you know, off you are. Then, it just disappears and you are great. This is the same. So this is when you reach that next level, that's your new level of altitude. And you need to accept and pause to give the time to everything, your brain, your mind, your brain, everything, your body, your spirit, to accept. Because this is that new altitude, which I think that, even some people get it in actually really those really, really tall buildings, in the lifts, in the elevators. You can get it. So it's like it's as fast as it can happen. And our brain is so good that it also can happen that fast. Because this is, like you said, it's so amazing, and I feel really blessed having the two of you read it. And as we said, we are recording this, and then it'll be out.
Well, I'm going to read the next 100 pages. I will definitely.
Yeah. He's reached the point of no return.
But it's I finger crossed, but I'm guessing not. It's just hopefully it's going to continue building. But something else also that you've asked me about is that I do walk the talk, and I do lead by example, and this is something that's very much me, and it feels very special when, you know, this pandemic, when it happened, for a stage speaker who owns her own business, this was pretty close to, you know, one of the most horrific things that could happen. You know, within 10 days, losing all of the contracts, all of the events being cancelled, and this, you know, going on for months and months. And I do not only teach, you know, what I do, I believe in it, I live by it, and I lead by example. So this is really important to me, that I wanted to, you know, do it, because I feel there's incredible strength in learning from someone who has gone through challenges and has found a way to make it work, has found a system, using the science to prove how every single thing is working, and how, you know, along the journey, you can also then build your own path. And like you said, your extraordinary results can be whatever is your extraordinary. It, you know, it doesn't mean, so I give a lot of stories, which is quite unusual for a business book, but this was me. So I wanted it. I know at times the narrative is incredibly intimate. I just wanted to really connect with my readers. So I just put, like I said, actually, I poured my heart and my brain in the book, and I really believe I did.
Now, actually, well, I'm going to jump in again, George, for a second, because I'm resonating with Frederique here. But again, what I'm hearing and what it's reminding in my personal story is you're walking the walk, I'm walking the walk, I'm talking the talk, but I've never done it. So have moved into an industry, in the film industry, the film education industry. I was previously an accountant, but what I said was, that was by accident. I was the accidental accountant for 30 years. That was never me. I never knew who I was. I found George, and I realized I should be in the film education industry, because I think it's more creative, and the pandemic was that's the weird thing. The pandemic was the stop. You couldn't stop yourself before, because you're on a roller coaster ride of bills and momentum, that you were in silos of jobs and careers that you couldn't actually back out of. It'd take a massive effort to back out of. So then all of a sudden the universe said, but the universe called to stop and stopped everything. Now it says, what you doing? Because now you're not doing the career we're doing. So you now have this one time in your life to go, what if you could do anything, would you like to be doing? Because you're doing nothing anyway. Start doing the thing you like. You've got this amount of life left. Therefore, if you now, and the pandemic is also saying, value life, value time, value where you are. You're in the now. It's the power of now, because you can make a decision now that will affect the rest of your life. You can draw on the past, but going forward, be mindful of where you are now. You're in a pandemic. You can get caught up on the fact what that means, or you can say, this is the best opportunity we're ever going to have to try something new, to do the tick list you put off for years. Yours included a book. It actually gave you the opportunity. The universe says, here's a year and a half, go off and do the book. Now you have no excuse. We're on a journey of a book as well, because we just said we'll do a book, because we can do a book. It's not going to necessarily be a bestseller. Now, we'll do your positive and go, it's going to be a New York bestseller, because we can dream it, we can believe it. Now, the customers have to line up and prove it. But apart from that, you can create the book, you can publish it, you can put it out there, you can write it. Is it a good book? Is it an interesting one? Will it entertain? Will people be interested? Yours definitely is going to be a bestseller. Ours, we're going to take lessons from you. We'll be slightly behind. We're going to go do what Frederique is doing. Follow the lead beyond the edge. Now, the pandemic is an opportunity. It was a stop for the world, for the planet. And an awful lot of people, if you take away the bad that was in there, there was a hell of a lot of good, more time with your family, a chance to change careers, a chance to refocus on what's important in family, friends, and life and time. And then also to try and go on that journey of something new and do what you are afraid of most, because life can be taken away in a heartbeat. So why bother being afraid of it? Embrace it.
What's important, I think, is that my journey has been slightly different. That I started off and I had the dream of becoming a filmmaker, which I did become. I've had a long journey in that. But as life sort of throws in a few spanners, the journeys went off kilter slightly. and I became an educationalist in filmmaking. And then I got to a certain point where my body decided to stop, and I had to accept where I was at that particular point in time. And it was not sleep, but I had to basically stop that chitter chatter box inside the head, because that was causing me all kinds of issues. But I think it also indicated to me, and I think a lot of people would get this, is that you know when you have reached, you've either gone too far off the track, and Gavin doesn't like the track, but you've gone too far off the timeline that you're setting yourself, or you feel that your purpose is, and you're being gently nudged to get back on that track. Now, the other thing that's also very important is that if we enjoy what we're doing now, but see it as the stepping stone to the next thing we're doing, we've got an idea of where we want to go and we're nudging it forward, but there's only so much we can do now. Because it's a big thing, we just gently work at it. Nothing is wasted. That's something I think that we've learned on life, is nothing is ever wasted. We actually gather things around us, and we may not understand the purpose of the thing that we've just picked up. But somewhere along the line, the reason we've picked that up maybe years ago will suddenly become relevant later on. It's one of those little things. There was an opportunity, you picked it up, you've added it to your collection of tools, and later on you're going on. So because I know a lot of people they want to get there so quickly, and you kind of go, but it's not about being there, it's about getting there.
Yeah.
It's the journey of trying to get there and enjoying that journey and really appreciating what is happening to you as you go along that journey, because each one of us has a different character, each one of us has a different personality, and each one of us has a very unique story that we have to tell, which is what I really liked about what you're talking about, your stories, because the story element is the key. If we don't understand our own story, we can't talk about it. And I think the key thing is that we need to talk. That's why humans can talk. We're talking beings, and that's the conversation that we're trying to set up with other people.
And storytelling, I mean, we can think back all the way back to cavemen around the campfire. Storytelling is incredibly powerful, and it's just over the last few years, that's thanks to the brain scans and the fMRI machines, we actually are able to scientifically prove something that we've known for years, decades, centuries, that storytelling is incredibly powerful for the brain. And because we've actually proven scientifically that storytelling enhances and has the power to shape your brain, because it changes your belief, your attitudes, your behaviors, which is incredible when you think about it. And it's because as soon as we start listening to a story, we engage both rational and emotional parts of the brain. And the brain being more engaged, we are more engaged. And when our brain gets more engaged, we learn better, we experience more, we just feel it more. It's just all around more powerful, which is why, and it's interesting actually, because when I started, and some people started reading the draft, and there were a couple of people that said, are you sure? This is quite personal. This is a business book. And I never felt it. I was just absolutely 100%. Yes, it's a business book, and I am going to do every single thing that I can to make sure that my readers are deeply experiencing it, so that they really hope on the path. And to do that, it means that if sometimes I'm vulnerable, then I will be vulnerable, because, I wrote it for my readers, for that moment, igniting the moment where we believe that ignite our extraordinary. And I think stories, like George said, it's everything. We connect with stories. So never once I thought, no, not a good idea. Just be vulnerable. I think loads of things happen when we are vulnerable.
Now I'm going to jump in, because I don't take this as a criticism. It's actually the opposite way around. It's going, I don't think it's a business book. I think it's actually a life book. The business of you, the business. I'm a person. I'm halfway through. And I'm going, I don't need to grow under a business head. And I need to grow. That's just one of the things. It's like Tim Robbins, or Tony Robbins, or whatever his name is. I don't even know his name. I can't remember his name. But there's 5 things: it's health, wealth, mind, finance. It's all the above. It's so far you don't need to say it's a business book. What I've read, it can be applied to business, it can be applied to personal, it can be applied to weight control. Because you're saying what it is up to the individual to go, my goals are, my uncomfortable zone is in this space, it's under the health. I want to get healthier, I want to get wealthier, I want to get wiser, I want to learn more, earn more. It doesn't matter what the goal is, the language is the same, the framework can be applied, it's stop. Think, act, do, dream. It can be. You can call it a business book all day long because that's just a marketplace.
Correct.
But the person that buys it is an individual. They have a life, they have a family, they have relations, and the business is just one element of what they do. And anything they apply to themselves will only be reflected in their outer life streams of when they go home from the office. It's how they act with the kids, with the spouse, with their friends and family. So I don't think it's one silo of anything. It's interchangeable across the customer base of going, how you want to use this is apply it to you, apply it to your box, your zone, your uncomfortableness, and lead from the beyond the edge of your zone. And it can be any type of zone. So I feel, don't underestimate the power of the marketplace there. It's a business book for business people that want to buy it. It's a coaching book for the resident. I would even get my 16-year-old daughter to read it because if she can read and she can understand, I'm going, this is you. Grow. You can be anything you want to be. And especially if you have a process and a framework which gives you a way to follow. So I'd be going, as soon as they can read and understand enough of that language, and you don't need to understand the technobabble because it's consumable without the science. You're just letting the science be there to reinforce those that want to question whether they go on that journey and apply your framework. Will it work? And you're saying, I've done the science, it will work because it's this neuroplasticity, what you're talking about. You've got to be your own DIY electrician and rewire those neurons or whatever it is. And so you have to be an electrician to the brain. And if you can be, you can achieve anything, and you'll achieve it if you believe it, but you've got a framework. And Frederique, you've got a framework. Let the customer decide what they're using it for.
I love that. I don't take it as a criticism at all. No, because this is, like you said, this is just the way they put the book into a box. When I wrote it, I said the book is for anyone with a brain who wants
or half a brain.
Who wants to lead beyond the edge. And it's it means a lot to say that, like you said, I've tried to incorporate stories, both personal and professional, and because sometimes you get corporate people, like sometimes I have to actually say, your brain does not change when you go from the office to home. It is still your brain. So there's a lot of things, that happens, and particularly I think, our boundaries have changed quite a lot with this pandemic. Many of us, over here, we've been confined for, we're going on to our 12th month, and of, not being out there. So out there is also could be more like out there, where out there, and but it's been.
I'm way out there, always being out there.
But it's it's been also those boundaries. So no, I appreciate that, and I think teenagers I would have. Well, so funny enough, I would have said, yes, that would have been great to learn that, but actually I would not change my path at all, because if I would change anything in my past, then the three of us would not be here right now doing this. So everything had to happen exactly the same way that it happened. But I could see the books on library shelves at universities, and because I think the earliest people can do it. Now, the good news is, which I do say straight away, is that, because I know it's a myth when we are adults and, our brain cannot change anymore, it's all set. So thank goodness this is not true. And I blast through the myth really quickly in the beginning of the book, so that, as like you said, we can use neuroplasticity, which is our amazing, incredible ability to change and rewire our brain. Garvin, I love that. Be the electrician up there, and do your wiring. And we absolutely can do this, and we can do this all the way up to our bed death. It never changed. We've actually now proven it to the science. It was a very old belief, that as soon as you achieved, your adult brain would not change anymore. So, and this is why we actually can physically create that path in the brain and then, activate it and then boom, do it.
One of the things I found that's quite interesting is that you've got a little thing that says about adopting these ideas of figuring things out, framing things, and feeling things. Now, you mentioned there youngsters. Quite often it's the old people that are considered to be the most stuck and rigid. But what I've actually discovered through teaching youngsters is quite often they're the ones that are very stuck and rigid because they find it very hard sometimes to adapt and break outside their box. And they're actually quite scared. And what you're having to try and do is encourage them to nurture them to actually sometimes engage in the work that we're asking us to do, to act those things out. And if they put into some kind of framework and see the results of what they're doing, they can actually start to expect, as you've got in your ideas, that there will be some kind of results. Now, we do a kind of reflective practice where you kind of plan something, you put it into action, you then review it, and then you take your learnings from that and put it back into it. So it's a kind of rotational type thing. And I think that's actually quite good in what you're suggesting people to do. But one of the key things, especially as an educationalist, that I found was that if nobody wanted to go to the water that was being offered to them, you couldn't do anything. And that was their free will. They were stuck. You could give them as much as you wanted to, but if they weren't prepared to adapt and take on a new way of looking at things, then there was nothing you could do. And at times, I think there's other teachings that you find that when you have that situation, it's not to actually worry about it. It's not to get uptight about it. It's actually sometimes a case of, well, it's been offered to you. We now need to walk away and go in another direction. And it's there if you want to take it. We're not going to force you. There's some great ideas. And I think that's what's really good. It's encouraging people to learn how to adapt to the new environment. And that's what we've all tried to do. In this pandemic, we found that we have suddenly found, a bit like the Earth during that time got a chance to renew itself. We were being told, in your words, to stop. We couldn't carry on doing what we were doing. We were now inside our box. We had to stay at home, wash our hands, keep the masks on. We had to do things that we were uncomfortable to do. But if we found that we could adapt to the situation, we could find that there's a way forward. And then we suddenly realized that we had time to do other things that we've been putting off. And I think that became a kind of key thing that we were starting to realize that actually our new edge was closest to us than we thought. And we could actually sort of just reach out and try and experiment with a few bits and pieces. And I love the fact that you play music and you cook. And I think that's quite interesting because for me, music during that time when I left the college, when I'd actually reached a point where I was forced to stop, I began to realize that music was something that could help me go out. It would stop me thinking in the traditional way, and I could start to feel the music coming out. So tell us a little bit about your music and your piano playing and all those sort of things and the cookery, the creative side of it, and how that's helped you with what you're doing in your journey.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's helping me tremendously. I think all of my business ideas have been achieved either while playing or baking or cooking. Very rarely. Actually, I don't even sit down at my desk with like a blank paper and a pen and then go business ideas. I don't do this because I think years ago I realized that's just not working. But I know a lot of people do it and they go, how? No. So yes, I love cooking and baking. Both. I particularly love baking because I can really use my creativity. In the street in our estate here, I've done quite a lot of the birthday cakes from the kids as they are growing up. It's also we have a special relationship, like making them year on year and just really releasing that creativity, which is really important for the brain. And then music, yes. Both my husband and I actually play piano. We have a baby grand piano. Which is a family heirloom and means a lot to us. And I actually teach kids. So again, it started in the street. And through the pandemic, most of them have actually continued, and it's just been amazing seeing how they've adapted. So to use adapted to it and learning, like even, as young as like 5-year-old, across the screen and taking them through the lesson and, each having their curriculum. And music is really impactful for the brain. Very, like, we've learned so much. I actually just, looping to something that, because it's kind of a short science, so we have the time to say to something that Garvin was mentioning quite a few minutes ago, because this is going so fast. We talked about the real and the imaginary. There is this fantastic study that, just to show you how amazing, because actually it's also going to loop to us and that neuroplasticity. There's this study at Harvard Medical School where they had two groups. Group A were asked on the piano just to learn what's called a 5-finger scale. So it's just, you just start at C and you go C, D, E, F, G. So C, D, E, F, G, C, D, E, F, G. And they were asked to learn how to do this. And then group B were asked to think of doing C, D, E, F, G, C, D, E, F, G. And obviously they took the scans before and then they took the scans after. And then this is how amazing it is. In both groups, the wiring happened of the new path creating of learning this C, D, E, F, G. Whether you were the group who physically were at the piano doing it, or the group who in their head were thinking C, D, E, F, G, C, D, E, F, G, the path actually were created in all brains. I mean, it's not like exceptional, isn't it? It's just...
I love it. You've actually drawn attention to the perfect cheat. And I'm actually applying it. I'm a film production executive. I'm a film producer. I'm a film director that has never made a film. And in my head, I'm Steven Spielberg. I'm going, yes, I am. I'm not going to bother with the training, the theoretical or the practical. I'm doing it pure mind power. I'm just doing a pure will. I know I'm already there because I've done your little story of visualization, manifestation, fooled my brain into believing I'm at the living the last 30 years doing it. Therefore, it's fine when I get there. It won't be a shock to me. I'm Steven Spielberg incarnate. I love the piano one because I remember that little story from last night when I was reading it. And the reason I remember it was my son is learning piano. And he's in this room with his, he has an electric piano of some description, but he's literally learning a song in a day because he's starting to like it. And he's doing it on his mobile phone. And I'm going, and he's got a great retentive memory, and he's looking at the phone and they see the little dots going up and down and he's planting it in his head and then he just goes off and plays it because he's remembered the order and he's just then applying it practically afterwards. Now, for me on filmmaking, I'm a bit fearful. I'm not going to necessarily make a film in the sense of do the camera work or the audio or this, but the making in my story and George's story is we're going to make it happen. We're going to be the showrunner. We're going to materialize all the bits that need to be in place. And we know what all the parts are because we've visualized it umpteen times. George would have done it in the past. I wouldn't have. But listening to him over the last couple of years, I can visualize every element from his scribing and storytelling as to what every role is, what everyone's doing. It doesn't matter what the story is. There's actors. The actors are going to be saying lines. Doesn't matter what the line is. No. You know you can crystallize all this if you just put the project in the right order, in a right framework. It can happen, and anyone can make it happen. Anyone can make their dreams come true, but the only way they can make their dreams come true is by leading themselves beyond their comfort zone, beyond the edge, taking the first step, and the first step is a success. It doesn't need to fulfill all the way. I do believe every day you turn up, you put on your dancing shoes, you put on your clothes, you go to the door, and you embrace the fact you're growing as opposed to you're fixed. That's that pattern interrupt. The pattern has been interrupted. The pattern is the fixed. If you're now going, I don't know what the pattern looks like, or I know what the new pattern looks like, you're growing And you won't stop growing till you reestablish a new pattern. So, like, I love what you're saying there, even with the piano. And as I said, I'm going to try and apply it in my daily life. I'm going to get the son to read your book now as well. He should be Chopin in the next 2 months, I reckon.
I think what's very interesting there is that Garvin says that he can imagine himself as being Steven Spielberg. But if he hadn't picked up the camera and put the microphone on it, we wouldn't have recorded 70 shows.
We wouldn't
so
be
he's already doing it.
You.
He just doesn't realize it. Yeah, you're actually doing it. Not only has he picked up the camera, he's put the microphone on, he's got Audacity going, he actually set up the lights around him at the moment, and he goes through a whole procedure, which is the filmmaking technique, every time we do this. But he's become so... It's so inbuilt. He's so that he doesn't even think about it. He's reached that point of competency now. He doesn't even think about it. He's just doing it. He's going into the place. He can now think about all the other things.
Now, the one thing George has not added in there is I don't think about all of that. And the one thing I should think about is there's someone else in the room. Garvin, shut up. Let the Frederiques talk. Let the George have a say. It's not the Garvin show.
But I love the music thing as well, because I'm going to go back to the music thing, because I first started to learn how to play the piano when I was about 7 or 8. My mum had a piano, and then I couldn't quite figure things out. And at 16, I had another crack at it. And again, I got my grade 1 at it, and I still couldn't work things out. Again, in the last 6 years, I've learned to play the violin. Somebody told me I couldn't play the violin. I was too old, and I went, "You want to bet?" And I've learned to play the violin. And I find it fascinating. I've now found that I'm moving from ideas on the violin to the keyboard. I'm without even thinking about it. I'm now picking up stuff off YouTube, and I'm doing I've suddenly found chord progressions. I was playing inside the chapel, playing the violin music and stuff, and I was suddenly asked to do it on my own. I realised the violin on its own is no good, and I had the courage to step out and say, right, I'm going to play the organ. And I found the chord progressions worked really well, and I could get the little tune here, and I was playing and the organist was saying, I didn't know you could play the organ. I said, well, I couldn't last week, but this week I can, because I've learned some little tricks. And I showed her that little trick. She went, I've been doing that for 40 years and I never knew how to do that. And it suddenly transformed. So you find that you're picking things up left, right, and center if you're open to the possibility. And you just find that you're picking these things up. And Garvin's doing that, and he's writing a book. He's become a filmmaker. It's not a fantasy. It's not a dream. He's actually doing it. He's doing all those things. He's adopted those ideas. He's adopted the framework. He's figured things out, and he's feeling his way forward, which is absolutely wonderful. And he's now acting. He's engaging, and he expects something to happen through that process that we're going through. I'm just paraphrasing your book here.
No, this is really good. This is when our future becomes our present, which I think is what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
We're making it real. Actually, I'm going to pull it back in, because we started this whole conversation, not to pull it back in. We asked Frederique to give us a couple of buzzwords to talk about, because we don't know what to talk about at the best of times, haven't a clue. And we're saying we better start this show shortly. Now, when we start the show, actually, I'm watching her now, and the great thing is, she's got a great presence, laughing, smiling, and she said her little Twitter handle, Irish Smiley, sir. So it fits your personality without knowing any more about you than the hour we're spending now. It's like I think Frederique is like a person you've known all your life. It's one of those, I do believe it's like those souls. You recognize a friend immediately. You recognize someone you can get on immediately. It's because other people, they haven't opened their mouth and they're already grating. You don't want to know them. I think in previous lives, these souls were reincarnated in previous lives, and they met each other and they hated each other. They had fights, and therefore those souls, when you in this reincarnation, recognize each other again immediately as you were a friend or you were a foe. And definitely, we probably met in previous lives. You were a friend. you weren't a foe. Now, we'll work on the foe bit for the future. You may not be a friend in the future. Not too sure yet. But Twitter handle Irish Smiley. It's the laughing. It's the you mentioned about, look, we took our name as being the 52 Jokers Wild. We're just, the Joker was more the avatar in the sense of we're throwing away the suit. We're saying we can be anything we want to be. We don't know what that role looks like yet. We are choosing it in the film industry. You went on your journey of maybe in the coaching and transformation industries and everything from piano playing to cookery. These are your creative outlets, and you use them as your mindfulness time to come up with your plans for world domination in your business. So I do resonate with that as well. If you ask me to go to work with a blank page and start coming up with all the strategies and all the rest of it, you're going to come up with next to nothing because you're being asked to do it there and then. Guaranteed, if you're raking leaves in the garden or making a cake, you're not going to be able to turn off that flow because you've quieted the chatterbox, you're in the mindful zone, and your brain is just going to tap into the universe, and every idea under the sun is just going to want to push that door down. You've got to now go, not everything, it's in what order, given your limited time and resource. Because you can conquer the planet, you can be Elon Musk, or you might just be quite happy to play the baby grand piano in Albert Hall. So you don't need to do everything, but do have those targets. And I like, what's that going to do with Irish Smiley? I don't know. But I think I had to mention it because you told me. And I say, it's good to see, it's one thing I said is make them laugh comes to mind. And that means people are enjoying themselves. And I think you have that effect on people and your audiences. You make them laugh. I make them cry, you make them laugh.
Well, thank you. No, that was thank you so much, Garvin. This Irish Smiley, it's actually my nickname given to me by my husband 20 years ago. This month, actually, just next week, 20 years ago. Frederique Murphy does not fit as a Twitter handle, and I wasn't ready to just drop a letter like Twitter actually told me years ago. It's like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Stick a 7 in at the end.
So I just thought I'll use Irish Smiley, and usually people said, rather quickly notice why. The two. Like the name of your podcast, but this is actually really profound because laughing and smiling is really important to the brain, and it does something. So the beauty of a smile, what I do love about it is that it works both ways. And I think the Buddhist Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said it like I think. When he says it's so meaningful, and the science, backed it up. He actually, how did he say? He said sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes the smile is the source of your joy. And this is actually what happens with laughing and laughter and smiling. It starts working for us, but then it works with the people that we do. So when you smile, the brain floats your brain with, I like to say, like a wonderful cocktail of neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and all of those kind of big names. Basically, great cocktails of chemicals flooding our brain, and it's just making us feel better. It makes us feel better. It makes our body feels better because actually one of those chemicals is endorphins, which actually are used as a mild pain, reliever when it's happening. Another one of those is dopamine, and dopamine is used as a reward system. So it's really really, really good. And you also get serotonin, which is a mild antidepressant. So all of this happens when the brain picks up a smile. And then what happens is when you see that I'm smiling at you, your brain gets flooded with endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and then see how it works both ways. And I think, the two of you find joy and laughter through the pandemic, built this amazing podcast from zero. Now, like you said, 70 episodes in, still going strong. And that's powerful, isn't it?
No, actually, George, I should be giving George more time, but I just you keep on giving me imagery because I think more in pictures, and like I said, even using the word like smile. Immediately I'm thinking, smile and the whole world smiles with you. And that's what you just said in techno-scientific babble. It's infectious. You smile, the drugs are released by the brain and the body and la la la. And actually, it's infectious. Smiling is infectious. The next person beside you will start smiling too. And that then reminds me of make them laugh. And that's what that's what you're meant to do as well, is smile, and the whole world smiles with you. Make them laugh, and that's what the game is. It becomes infectious. So Irish smiley is, you had at the very beginning of your sentence there, laughing, and that's what it's saying. Smile, and the whole world smiles with you. Make them laugh. Don't make them cry. It's infectious, and everybody is lifted. So we talked in one of our shows before, like there's not a lot of people around, and just say hello, and it's all the negative, the downtrodden, did you hear this, and that, and it's death and doom and gloom. Whereas if it had been just a joke or a smile or something good, it lifts everybody. The whole mood lifts, and we all go out to play. We all go out to have a good time in the pub when we could. We didn't go out to hear the bad news. We went out to escape it. So I love the science, as you said, in the background backs it up. We all feel better. We can use these chemicals within ourselves to actually physically get better, because if we can smile and be happy, a happy person, their body will repair faster than a person that is nearly making themselves sick by thinking about the negatives. And because if you start thinking fear and negative anxiety, stress, it starts going on that loop. And again, this brings us back to your book, The Stop. It's that pattern interrupt. You're going, if I spot myself, having a negative thought, I'm entering into a silo. I'm letting it grow. I'm giving it food. I'm giving it energy. When all I've got to do is think of puppy dogs running around a field, I've stopped it. I've replaced it. I've got a smile, and I can go the opposite journey because it's all in your head. Or even if it wasn't, it's how you deal with it. So you can let something destroy your life and take control, but if you can just stop and do the pattern interrupt and be aware, like your book says, you can take control and turn a bad thing into a good thing. You can go from bad health to good health by just having a positive attitude and reinforcing it. So again, I saw an awful lot of that in you. Stop. It's actually, I think one of the little sayings you had in your book was, catch yourself in the act. Now, we won't go there with other connotations, what the hell that says, but is in the act of thinking negative thoughts, and stop and do the pattern interrupt and take control and do what you want to do. So I heard all that in your book, and so smile, and the whole world smiles with you. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
I like the idea that it's really, you're transforming somebody who is constantly looking inward, and showing them a way to look outwards. And once their focus is no longer on their inner self and looking at what's on around them, they can then start to appreciate the world. Because I mean, the great thing is, like we mentioned, stop. One of the I was on a little course up in Larne a couple of years ago, and part of the exercise was to close your eyes, switch down that feed of information, and actually sit quietly and listen. And what was fascinating was to hear bumblebees go past us, flapping their wings, and they sounded like this massive, great big plane going past. And then you could feel this rumbling, and it's going to go, what's going on here? There's a rumbling sensation. And it was actually the Larne ferry coming from Scotland. And it was like 10 miles away when you initially started, and you felt it coming into the harbour. And it was just the vibrations that were going on, and all these birds flying past, and then the leaves. Quite often, because we're too caught up in these little mobile phones that totally distract you and they rob you of your life. We're suddenly forgetting that the world that we live in, the reality that we live in, is far more entertaining and far more pleasant to be part of if we could just get disconnected from all this technical stuff that's kind of messing up our electric sort of feed. The magnetic feed going around us is being disrupted by all this other technology. And I don't know how you feel, but if I'm in front of this computer for too long, I know that there's a fatigue, it's like my energy levels just go through. It's like somebody's just hit a switch and I have to escape from it. I have to stop it. But I think that's the key thing. We are in a really amazing time if we look at it from a certain perspective, where we now have an opportunity to actually listen to the world, watch the world outside, and enjoy what that creation is that's been given to us, in our own gardens, which I think is a really, really important part of that process.
Now, we like animals. So there's a question in there somewhere. There's an elephant running a rampage.
Running around.
So I have a painting in the corner over here of a 6-foot pink elephant. So the show is called 52 Jokers Wild in the Room. The in the room is the elephant in the room. And there's always an elephant in the room. Some rooms there's a fucking herd of them running around. So I suppose if we chuck a question at you now, I mean, what's your current elephant?
What's the current elephant? Well, actually, we've talked about it, and we were right there on, with the elephant. The elephant is the box and our fears, and it's us not shying away from, there is a box, and the walls of the box, they are full of fears, and we just have to go at it. And, using like another analogy, like you have your moth hill and the mountains, or, the South African have this, like, proverbs that they say, or jokes. They say, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And actually, it's just really, really true. So, it's identify. It's you use a word that actually I hadn't come up yet, but
I'm shocked, Frederique. It's an endangered species, and you're eating them. You got to be mindful here now.
I just love it when they just go ask you, well, how do you eat an elephant? So it's something that they do over there. So one bite at a time. But it's really that explanation of, going for it, but having identified, so being aware. And I'm actually surprised the word hadn't come up before, because I use it an awful lot. Because, I always say if mindset had an A, it would be for awareness. Awareness is key. And not shying away from that elephant, really like actually being very kind and holding hands and just like saying, okay, I see you for, who and what you are. And I think then, the world then is our oyster, and a stage.
No. You just reminded me. Now I'm going to join dots in the book in different language, in the sense of, now you mentioned the elephant in your case is more awareness of the edge of the box and maybe the fear, all in one sentence. If I heard you right. Now somewhere in the book there's the orphan, and the orphan is the fear. Now we got to adopt the orphan, which is fear. In this case, which might be, we have to own the elephant. We have to adopt this elephant, whatever fear it happens to be, or whatever fixed mindset it is, and we have to go ride the elephant through the wall, over the edge, on a new safari. We're going to go basically safari with our elephant. We're going to own that fear. We're going to tame him. We're going to make friends with it, and we're going to embrace it and go on a new journey and enjoy the journey of safari into the unknown of new experiences and learning. So, and then by the end of it, if we don't kill the elephant, or maybe we'll have to kill the elephant and probably eat him, as you said. But I mean, if we don't do that, no, actually, that's what we have to do. We have to eat and own that fear. Then we have to find a new elephant and do the process again. Now, we're not condoning going on, the real elephants and going out there with these endangered species. But actually, we want to make fear an endangered species. There you go. I found my home. So, in our language, the elephant is not the fear. It's the fear. It's what's the elephant's name. It's the fear of what. So my elephant might be, I want to lose 2 stone and I don't know how to do it, and I got to go on the journey of the fear of exercise, having to commit to a plan. It's those New Year's resolutions of going, we got to get healthy by next Christmas because we're going to eat ourselves a new turkey. But I mean, until then, we've got a plan of getting healthy, wealthy and wise. But 2 weeks in, we're not using the gym membership, and the plan went out the window, and the New Year's resolutions. And the problem is, most people don't embrace their fears because it's hard work. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that?
and it's it's why I wanted this book to be out, and why I've written it, because our fear is not our enemy, and we have to befriend it to actually then make it happen. This is the only way that it will happen. And it's not about, sometimes some people, they say, let's be fearless. this not really it in like this needs more context, because actually a true fearless state of mind is when you are inside of your comfort zone and you've sat and you are not moving, because then that is the only time where you won't have any doubt and insecurity popping in and any fears. It's about, if you want to use the word being fearless, it's about learning how to befriend your fear, thanks to my Lead Beyond the Edge framework, on where you learn, okay, now I'm making it my friend, and I can learn how to push through. Like, looping back to George explaining how we push, that wall, and that wall goes down. And then as George said, we are suddenly into this larger box, and then it's going to be fine for a while. And then again, we're going to start again. And then we have this framework and we befriend our fear, and then we push the wall again. And then, we just keep on pushing through. I know, the two of you also talk about how, I think the way you say it is happy, not happy, which is, it's that when it's that ever growing growth, you continue learning. And if you are happy where you are, then you are. But then you may be inside that comfort zone. And at some point, you want to expand.
No, that's the great thing. You're saying, see, the weird thing is it's not for everyone. If you're happy, then a lot of people question the fact, I couldn't be happy. I'm happy. Why am I happy? I should be unhappy. I need to be maybe doing something else. And they go on journeys they don't need to go on because they were actually happy. They were fine. They were grand. It wasn't that it was a comfort zone. They actually had grown to where they needed to be. And it was actually the perfect storm. Now, the unhappy is probably more reflective of you're in a zone that's, you're uncomfortable in, then uncomfortable is reflected in unhappiness because you're not happy where you are. You need to move out of that and go on a new journey till you become happy. So happiness and comfort, they're aligned, and it doesn't mean you have to keep on forever growing, because you might just need to grow to the level of happiness that you're aware you're living in the now and the moment, and what you have. You could do with 2 more Porsches, but I'm happy with the one. It's what makes sense. Now, when I heard you say fearless, a word just jumped into my mind, and it was fierce. So it was more, and the other side of fear is actually courage. So you're pushing through your fears. What you're really doing is you're on your journey to get the courage to go on your journey, because now you're not fearless, but you're becoming fierce. You're becoming bold. You're getting the audacity to move forward, recognize where you are, and that's not where you want to be. So you can go on that journey. You may not reach the land of Oz, but you're on the yellow brick road, as we keep on saying. And every step you take is you're happier. You're going to keep on getting happier. You're going where you want to go. You're not in control. You mentioned your book again. You're not in control of everything. There's an awful lot of uncontrollables out there. Don't be unhappy with the uncontrollables and think that's something you're doing, because you cannot affect it. Mm-hmm. Be happy that you're dealing with your framework again, which says the strategic control. If you take control of the controllables that you can affect, then you could be happy in yourself that you're doing your best and you are going on your journey. So there's word first, bold, courage. It all seems to emanate from those frameworks again. I know you might use different words and similar words, but it's actually now I'll end on this. It wasn't really a question or a statement. It was what was more reminding me of. Mm-hmm. It's just reminding me of 3 F's that George was talking about this morning, which you use in your framework somewhere else. He was trying to remember them. You're going to tell us, but I was thinking of FFS, which was a nice little Irish course, for fuck's sake. But it was the acronym for that. But yours is better. Yours is, I think it's got fear. It might have fierce. You're going to tell us what it is. So we're up to the 3 F's.
So up to the 3 F's. The 3 F's are the 3 reaction to fear. There are 3 ways that we can react. We can fight. We can freeze, or we can fly. And obviously loads of people would be familiar with the fight or flight response, and we do dig into it. But there is that third reaction, which is that freeze, which actually, in a sense, we've talked about quite a lot. This is where we just pause and take stock. And we then realize, do we want to fight? Or do we want to, retrieve and, fly away? And this is a wonderful middle reaction where you are then, you are in control of your behavior. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to lead? It's all in your hands.
One of the things I found sort of fascinating there was that, as Gavin was talking, and you're talking there as well, is that quite often we have a fear of doing something, which is where the freeze comes in. So we freeze, we don't want to do it. But that fear can help you start to prepare yourself for an activity that you need to do. Now, we've done this with the filmmaking in the past, where we've had to think, well, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Okay, let's just put in, it's risk assessment is what we're actually doing. We put in all the controls to make sure things go. And then the day of the shoot, whichever day it is, you suddenly get there and say, well, all I need to do is be there and go through the processes that I've set up and not actually be frightened now, because whatever happens, we have a method of dealing with it, and actually being present in that moment, being in the now, and just experiencing what's going on and doing your bit that you've been sent to do. The same with the music. If I was playing a piece of music, I'd practice. I'd be worried about what I was going to be doing. And even before the event, and in this case it was probably in a mass, but before it started, if it was a practice run, I'd be messing up everything. But I knew that once I let go and allowed the spirit, in my case, to take over, when the performance happened, it would tended to be okay. And you knew that there was something else there with you, guiding you as you went through. Now, afterwards, you suddenly felt this adulation, this sense of, wow, I've given, and now the reward is that I suddenly, you were saying the mammoth or whatever they call it, inside your head, you were feeling excited, you were happy, because you knew that you'd given what you could do. It may not have been perfect, but there was enough people coming up and saying, look, well done, you did a good job, we're happy with what you did. And that's where you're thinking about your audience out there as well, because you know that you've given them what they needed and they're feeling the same joy. So it's not just an individual thing, it's a shared community type experience, because you stepped out and gave them something that enhanced their life in that moment. And I think that's the joy of giving. That's something that's kind of, I think, very important. That's the act, the engage that you talked about.
I'm going to just jump in and give Frederique the airtime in a second, but I might rob her own story on her, depending. And what it is you've just done a story. It depends what page you got up to, George. You flipped through the book.
Yeah.
I read the 118 pages, but I spotted the story. And I think now she alludes to a trick they're going on stage, and it's that fear or flight, and it's sort of wrapped into it, I believe. And as you said, it's more this reactive, proactive type of, I'm a reactive person. I nearly panic and run away in reaction. Had I waited 3 seconds and thought about it being what you were saying, I probably would have went the opposite way and realised it's not a big deal. But, the beauty of what George just said was he actually gave this stage type scenario in a church that he himself experienced there. And good or bad, you just embrace it. You went on. The show must go on. You had no choice. You can embrace the fear. You just got to go up there. You can be afraid or otherwise. So, Frederique, you've got a trick for going on stage, I believe, somewhere in the little book, which actually might wrap this analogy up a little bit.
Well, I don't know, because it's like spoiler alert. No.
All right, no. All right, it's page 109,
spoiler
and you can buy the book.
No, it has to be. No, yeah, it has to be.
All right, that's good. It's in there.
Actually,
I'm
there
not going to spoil the spoiler alert. But as I said, it's back to that take control. It's that break. As George said it there as well. It's if we recognise, where we are, we can, I actually think I'm remembering again earlier on what we're talking about was the Walter Mitty of things. He went on the journeys first in his mind, and then there was a great film, in the sense of, then I think it was Ben Stiller. Then he went off and actually lived it. He actually did the same things again, not just in his imagination, but in real life. And now again, I know it's a film of an imaginary man, but it was a lovely film to watch in the sense of, we all have dreams, and we're walking down the road to the shops, and we're skiing in our heads. And okay, that's about as close as we're going to get currently. But is that now, when things get better in the future, do we go skiing in real life? Now, maybe if things don't get better in the future, we still experienced the experience and had a good walk down to the shops, whereby I'm usually running. People think I'm your man out of Tom Hanks out of Forrest Gump going off for a run. I'm running about 60 miles an hour down to the shops with a big smile on my face. They think there's a lunatic on the loose. But what I'm doing is I'm skiing in my head. So I've got this adrenaline of going down mountains while going down the road. And I reflect it outwards, and that's what people will then see. You're having a great time. He's a lunatic. But there's a full 3D film going on in my head of what the activity is for today. So George reminded me again where people are, the pandemic is stopping off of people, and we're saying do positive things. And some people can't, there's escapism as well. They can't escape their lives. They're in poverty. We're saying, well, if you weren't doing this, go off and do something else. There's programs I'm watching on TV. There isn't a choice there. They're selling drugs. They're in a country that's the only choice is to feed their children. If you don't do it, someone will shoot them. So there's an awful lot of, you got like for like comparisons, and saying there's people that their only journey is escapism in their heads, versus trying to fulfill something in a real life environment. We're very lucky that we can actually say, come up with a dream and be actually able to lead from the edge and make it happen. I'm not saying other people can't do that, but it's not like for like in an awful lot of cases. It's tough for an awful lot of people.
I think there's something also very important, because what we have to learn is that we control so much, and then there's a lot that we don't control. And we have to know where is the point to let go. And I used to do lots of painting and things like that. And I began to realize that if I tried to tweak it and become a perfectionist, I'd end up destroying what I was doing. It's like you can overcook the cake if you're not careful. If you're trying to you put too many ingredients in it, it can not quite taste right. But sometimes you have to, that you've got so far, you've done all that you possibly can, and now you need to let go. It's like children when they get older. There comes a point where I've taught them all I can possibly do. Now I need to let go and relax in knowing that they can now do it themselves. And that happens to students as well. You get to a point where they're sailing their own ship, and you can let go. And you need to let go, otherwise if you over control them, you're not allowing them to have the life that they need to have. And I think that's something that's important. It's also important with projects, because you can smother a project, you can strangle a project just because you're trying to over control it. And that's something that we have to, that's in your acceptance part, I think, as well. I'm kind of looking at it and kind of go, yeah, actually that's the acceptance. You have to learn to know when to stop and let go. And I think that's an important part. And I think we're reaching, we're about 122 minutes into this. We have to reach a point where we have to let go of this conversation.
Well, I'm going to throw the last question back to Frederique and go.
Go on, then throw the last question, because I normally ask people what would they like to say.
What's next? What's the plan for world domination?
World domination. Right now, really enjoying every single minute of the journey, which I think is something, that came up. It's not where you end up, it's enjoying the journey. Obviously, this is my first book. So what's next? Maybe another one, but right now I'm really, really focused on this one. I would like as many people, to get their hands on, so that they can build their own path in their brain and they can achieve their extraordinary. So really, I think, this is going to be weeks, months and years of work on this, and continuing to, I've been really, there was a real pivot in my business where, suddenly we are delivering digitally and continuing to help leaders be extraordinary, even at this very unsettling time. And, and who knows, some people have already asked, and I do say it is a first book, which of course then hint away that, there is a lot more material and, maybe a second one.
That's it. It's the end of the beginning. That's it.
Yes.
It's not the beginning of the end.
No.
Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining us for this very, very special edition of In the Room with George and Garvin, hopefully, or Garvin and George, depending on which way around. Our special guest today has been Frederique Murphy, and she's been talking about her book, which comes out at the end of March, I believe that's right, isn't it?
March
Right,
30th,
Yep.
official publication.
March the 30th, which is a great day because that's my mum and dad's wedding anniversary. So it's a special day for them. Well, for my mum anyway at this point.
You can get them a
And the book
present
is
each
called-
of the book, George.
We can get them a present each. Yeah, that's it. So the book is called Lead Beyond the Edge, and I'm sure it'll be on Amazon. and
I should
every
make sure
good
it's right
outlet.
there. Now, are you reading that? Is it
Lead Beyond the
Right,
Edge.
just don't get it
Lead
wrong
Beyond
on
the Edge. I think
Frederique.
I've got that. No, I haven't got that wrong. So, or if you we'll put Frederica's website at the end of this in the end credits. So if you want to go there, I'm sure you can access the book there also. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and thanks to Frederica and thanks to Garvin, and we'll close and say bye-bye. Bye for now.
Adieu.
Thanks for watching.
Farewell.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.